Everyone. Welcome to another week of Oh Ship. This week, I have my friend Rob Noble joining us. I've known Rob for quite a while. He and I met during the process and creation of an industry trade group for the digital advertising world called SODA. He was one of the original OG members of that. As a fellow Brit and a fellow eccentric entrepreneur, we hit it off marvelously. He has done incredible things in his career. He's currently the CEO of a group called Group of Humans, which you'll hear more about today. He was the co-founder and CEO of an agency called Great Fridays, which he sold to EPAM. He was the co-founder of a group called Lightmaker, which is when I originally met him back in the day. These are incredible, absolutely leading edge, creative groups. Frankly, I was with him the night that he found out that he had sold Great Fridays to EPAM. I don't think my wife has ever forgiven me for that night. I think we got home at about 6:37 in the morning, and so he and I are bonded in blood and getting in trouble with our missuses. He's also the kind of guy that during the pandemic is going off and doing things like creating entire charitable groups like Caregiving, which help bring PPE to the front lines. With all those people that are really making a difference in looking after all of us during this crazy pandemic. But with all this experience I have with him, I actually found out something new about him that I'd never heard before. And that is that his father was in the farming world and that he was being raised and groomed to be effectively a farmer. And I was so blown away by this that combined with my recent love of Jeremy Clarkson's Farm, which if you haven't heard about it, is definitely worth a peek on Amazon Prime, and kind of goes through this city slicker, if you will, who gets his first experience with farm life. And what's so amazing about Clarkson's Farm is it really helps people to understand who really don't know anything, like me, to some extent, and know about the farming world. It really helps, I think, everyday people to understand the impact of that. And what I found so interesting, and I think you're going to find so interesting about today's episode, is that those same kind of lessons that I feel like you might be able to get through Clarkson's Farm, Rob has also been applying the same kind of, let's call it like farm philosophy to his own life. And you're going to learn all about that on today's episode of Oh Ship as we explore farming for the future. Rob, welcome to Oh Ship.
Good afternoon, good morning, Freddie. How are you, mate?
I'm doing great. So where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling in from my little old farm in England now, as I moved back from Miami, as you know, in September. So here in Berkshire, just near Henley-on-Thames.
I love it. I knew that Rob had moved back to the UK. I didn't actually realize he was fully on a farm until we were catching up before the show. My favorite moment was when he talked about, he goes, sometimes I have to run from this barn to this barn to catch a meeting really quickly. I was like, man, this is really going to be a proper show about farming today. We're going all in on farm life.
I'd like to add, I have no arable crops or livestock, but I'd have the nice part of the farm, the barn and the land. Yeah.
So, Rob, I talked a little bit about you and your background at the beginning of the show, but I want to make sure I did it full justice. Could you tell our audience a little bit about how you kind of got your start? And I think we're going to obviously navigate how that's evolved throughout the show. But this kind of farming origin story that was even new to me, I think would be a great place to start the show.
Yeah, I guess, I grew up in Norfolk. And for those of you in the USA, that is a very arable part of England. It's the bump of England on the East Coast, very flat, land and perfect for crops. But my father is an agronomist, so a crop doctor. someone
But
who
see, I think you're gonna need to define that one. I don't know if I've got agronomist in my dictionary. So
yeah, it's a crop doctor. It's somebody who goes out, looks at the crops, and determines what fertilizers and what care it needs to flourish.
word of the day, love
Create
it.
the best yield. But no, my dad was in that world, and it wouldn't be uncommon for me in my teenage years, 12, 13, 14, 15, to in the summer holiday be dropped off in a field and have to walk many hundreds of hectares in a W shape to collect soil samples that my father then took back to the laboratory and had tested for the right kind of nutrition and ingredients that soil needed to grow the right crops. So yeah, I spent many summers walking fields and making my dad's fields the right kind of field for the crop he was putting in it. Anyway, to put it that way.
And you and I have kind of joked many a time that how I basically spent my childhood being groomed to be an airline CEO, and so I think I didn't end up going down that path as my father wanted me to do. It sounds like obviously you didn't go down the path your father wanted you to go down
No,
either.
I mean, at school, I was good at art and maths, right? And that wasn't really a combination subject. So, I went off to agricultural college at the age of 17 and lived on the farm. It was it's a real farm, with pigs and cows and horticulture and sheep and the whole works. And, I did a business and finance agricultural degree, if you like, and learnt about all things farming with the notion of going into that industry.
I have to just stress this for anyone who's listening or watching right now. Rob is a certifiable digital genius wizard, just someone I really, really, really admire. So it's just really hard to kind of imagine that was where your background comes from.
This is 1992, Freddie. This is pre really the internet. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
the internet being born was my savior,
yeah,
in the sense that I was able to change career paths and follow my passion, which
yeah.
is I look at the internet as being art and maths, mate, and being able to do those two things I was really good at and love has been a blessing, really. And that farming world, I still look back on. I think it's kind of interesting to me that I run this group now that sustainability and climate and the environment is really at the top of our agenda of things we want to work with, and we're being approached by vertical farming technology entities and startups to help them because the farming world is catching up. The bandwidth is there. Living on a farm 10 years ago, and even sometimes when I go to Norfolk to my parents, the internet isn't your friend. You don't get on it that often, but it's becoming more connected. So it was, for me, it's kind of coming full circle. I've done all 25 years of working with digital, and now I can do it, in the world that my father wanted me to work in originally.
And so, first, I'm glad that it sounds like your parents are still around, and you're able to go see them up in North England. So that's wonderful for starters. How does your dad react to your kind of kind of incredible career in the internet and digital world? Out of interest.
Well, the funny thing is, Dad's a gadget man, so he has every gadget, but doesn't know how to work any of them. So I'm always the guy that's taught him how to work all those gadgets. I think any good son does that. When he calls me with a thing, it'll always be, just can you help me figure this out? Whether it's a new car and he can't work out how to lower the suspension, or he can't access some device or computer. That's kind of so I think he's quite happy I went down that world because it helps him ultimately. Because I'm pretty au fait with all of the things that he can't work. But I think he's fascinated by the fact of how quickly I can pick up what's taken him 40 years to get his head around. That I kind of with data and sort of the technical view of the world that we've been lucky to experience can kind of summarize the agricultural business quite quickly and understand how technology can help it and design can help it. So he's I think hopefully he's proud of where I've got to, even though at the beginning he was like, what's the internet? Why would you go there?
It's so one of the things that inspired this conversation between us is we've both been watching, Jeremy Clarkson's Clarkson Farm. And again, for those of you, that don't know Jeremy Clarkson, you may have somehow missed it. It's had Top Gear, which I'm pretty sure is the biggest TV show in the world. Um, it's a guy who spent the last 20 plus years driving around in, $1 million supercars, and then he spends a year on this farm that he happened to own, and his general manager, or his farm manager, basically quit, and he said, "No big deal, I'll just go step in and take over this farm for a year." And that, I'm a big shot, I can do it, no problem. We don't want to kind of ruin the punchline of how it ends for him. But needless to say, it's a really fascinating story. I've been watching it, and worth noting, my sister owns a farm in northern Florida. My father also had farms, but this is long before I was. It's not something I really lived in day to day, so I'm exposed to it, but not on the kind of level you are, Rob. And one of the things that I really enjoyed in our chats was you talking about how some of these things have really inspired you, and that there actually are these kind of direct correlations between what you can take away from farm life and apply to kind of the traditional business world, which is really what a lot of where our audience comes from. And I guess I just love to hear if there, any of those lessons that you can share.
Yeah, I mean, Clarkson's Farm is brilliant. The first thing that it made me think of was how I started out in 1994, 95 with the web and not really knowing what I was doing. It's kind of how Clarkson turns up on the farm on the first day. He bought a Lamborghini tractor because he'd driven Lamborghinis. The
Too
worst
big.
tractor you can put on an arable farm is a Lamborghini tractor because they're absolutely massive. It's the same as going and buying, I don't know, the biggest screen, which wasn't really necessary, or the wrong software. He literally had no idea. But
Does it seem I'm like I have a 55-inch computer monitor. Am I Jeremy Clarkson? Is that where you're like, it's like buying a giant screen? What kind of idiot would buy a giant screen? And I like silently hang my head in shame.
well, I have one in front of me now as well, Freddie. But that's back in 1994, people would have thought, why would you drop £15,000 on a giant screen? They're not 500 quid like they are today. Clarkson went and bought a £700,000 Lamborghini tractor,
Yeah,
right?
so good.
And it just kind of it made me think. I some of the things I've carried with me from farming. Focus is everything. And in agricultural college, you had to think about which discipline you wanted to take on. So you did a practical side of it, and you did the kind of business and finance side of it. And the practical side of it, you'd have sheep and cows and pigs and horticulture, right? Cows, you had to get up the earliest for 4 a.m. Not for me. Next was sheep. The only good thing about sheep for me was lambing season, because that's when the babies came out. The rest of the year, it's kind of a
Thank
smelly.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice. That was a good, but it lasted for a month, so it wasn't a long enough enjoyment period for me. And pigs, never really got in with the pigs. They were a bit aggressive. Yeah, they're kind of cute when they come out, but they can be little nasty things. So
Bit
what pigs?
picky, I'm guessing.
Yeah, not the best. So I ended up in horticulture because you got up at 10 a.m. Quite frankly, it's where most of the females were, being brutally honest. So that was good. And at that time, marijuana was a pretty substantial part of my life as a 17-year-old long-haired wannabe farmer. So I ended up in the horticultural part of the world, and I guess that when I think about the focus I've had in my career, like Maker, we were laser focused on being brilliant at one thing, and that was Flash, right? And I think we succeeded in doing that because we ended up working on the Flash UI, and I'm working on Adobe products after Macromedia was acquired. I worked with their XD team. We were so good at Flash that we did the first deployment of Flash on mobile phones in Seoul with Adobe, right? We were so focused, but we became so good at that particular tool.
Mhm.
And similarly in Great
There's
Friday.
there's some real merit in I feel like in this world, especially if you're in an external firm, expertise is everything, and experts, true experts, is what people are looking for. A lot of times, people hire generalists within their own firm, but when they look to outside support, they're really looking for hardcore specialists. And I can
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can really identify with you if you're thinking around a focus.
Yeah, it's also, I think, around passion, right? So I still had to do, work with the cows and the pigs and the sheep, but horticulture as well. I was able to, spend the majority of my studying while I was doing the business and finance. But that again, it was just reflecting on watching Clarkson's farm and the challenges he had. Where I ended up, I didn't do all the other jobs that Clarkson had to do on that farm. I did the one role, which was looking after the farm planning and the finances and the funding, and that's what I enjoyed the most. And as I've progressed into the design world, I love design, but I realized when I went amongst the best, and when I started my career with Lightmaker, I had some amazing designs. I was nowhere near good enough, right? So the only way that I could work with these creative people was to be the guy that looked after the numbers and brought the work to the group and helped to create a culture with them. I thoroughly enjoy being around creative people, and the only way for me to do that was to be that business and finance guy. And it similarly, was the same at agricultural college. That's where I was strongest. And but the practical side of it, I think, really important as well, to know it all, to be aware of it. It's very hard to pull the wool over someone's eyes who did like one of the first internet degrees, as I did, having left agricultural college and pivoted when the internet was born into doing a media technology course, as it was called, in 1993. It was interesting. So, I think the multiple disciplines we get in our digital world, is very, in the farming world, is very similar as well. You need skilled people to do those roles specifically, and you probably need someone above that who understands them all, but just enough.
I didn't think I'd actually have something big to contribute in this farming theme, but I do actually have a farming lesson that I got this morning. And so I know you might ask, how will I get a farming lesson this morning for a guy that lives in South Florida? And some of you who've been watching us ship for a while know about my saga with my ducks. So for those of you who haven't heard, I have basically saved this mother duck on my property, got killed sadly. I rushed off to get an incubator to put her eggs in this incubator, not really understanding in full honesty what I had signed myself up for, and then have seven ducks that I've been raising since birth, and they're about 2 weeks away from being able to fly, and they're getting big, which means they're making an absolute mess of the property. And so today I got up really early, put them out back, and I pushed them out on the other side of my fence. And I'm trying to encourage them to go out on the lake on their own, so they survive. And I need to get them to be independent. And I would say that the lesson that I would take about this is, I think as a leader, it's really, really important that you have to be able to encourage people to stand on their own 2 feet. You need to be able to step back from your team, and no matter how much you may be trying to nurture talent, I think as a leader, it's super important to be hands off, and let people sink or swim on their own merit at some point. Um, and I know that I think I've seen you do that in your own leadership. But today, farmer Fred, the duck herder, is that even the right word?
Duck shepherd.
Duck. Yeah. What is it?
Shepherd.
Duck shepherd. Yes, duck shepherd. I like that. I have my own kind of nurturing farm lesson this morning.
It's funny, man. At agricultural college, as you know me, I do like a beer. I ran the bar at the college, because it was the social, it was the place where everybody came to, and you would learn so much about everybody else's discipline. So, I'd much rather speak to a pig farmer at the bar than actually have to go to the pig farm to get my knowledge. And similarly with the sheep farming, I didn't have to actually set foot anywhere near those places, yet still get the knowledge. So, again, taking that sort of theme forward, knowing your teams is something I've always had. Finding that moment, and in Lightmaker, my first company, we would go to the pub at 2:30 on a Friday, and that was part of the culture of a 90s zeros company. In Great Fridays, it was named after the fact that we lost that in Light Maker as we got bigger. As we got bigger, it became much, much harder to have those earlier finishes on a Friday. And Great Fridays was really a nod back to the days that we did that, and it was important. And so in Fridays, I bought everybody's lunch in all the offices. We had 4 studios, 2 in America, 2 in the UK, and I would make sure that the bar tab was covered wherever they went for a beer after work. And it was just, and because you get to know your people better, in an environment where they're relaxed, and you remove the titles and the and that kind of office environment for something more casual. And I think that's really important.
I'm intrigued. I had last week we had Stephen Moy from Barbarian Group, and we were talking about how culture has evolved in professional services businesses, specifically in this case agencies. So you made a reference a second ago to the kind of like, hey, that's kind of how it went, especially in England. I think in the summer, I was at an agency in London, and summer Fridays, it was kind of at a good day was a half a day, and and it just kind of the whole office just kind of cleared out, and everyone was fine with it because we were so thankful for the good weather. How do you get to know your people now, especially you like me, Group of Humans is a virtual business. You guys have never had a physical office, as far as I know, right? Same as us. How many years have you been doing Group of Humans now, Rob?
We're 3 years old next week, actually.
That's exciting, man. Happy birthday to Group of Humans. But how do you find that building a culture has changed for you?
Well, I would say in a distributed team or community, as I call it, and to language-wise. Distributed means you don't have an office. Remote means you do. You have somewhere to go to. You're working remote from it. And community versus network, I differentiate because community gives you the sense you have values and culture and things you stand behind. And a network is just a group of nodes.
I agree. Yeah, couldn't agree more. That's a really nice way of phrasing it, by the way. I might nick that.
So, distributed community. You have to 10x your communication. I thought I had to when I moved from. When I first opened my first office in America in 2005, that was a big challenge, having 2 locations. A wise man, a guy called Andreas Preuss, who was the CEO of the European Stock Exchange at the time, said to me that your biggest challenge will be communication. And it's even more so in distributed communities. You have to figure out a cadence of communication and also where people want to be communicated to. So, when you run a group like mine, they're practitioners. They can work independently of the humans, and they can work within the collective of the humans. Okay. So sometimes they may be on a program of their own accord, and they don't check into the tools as much as they need to. So I will do things, for example, like I'll do a 4-minute video every Friday that says what's gone on this week. It's just a news flash in case you missed the email or the Slack channel or whatever. So they get reliant upon that update, so they can just get their little snapshot of 4 minutes if they're not quite.
And one less meeting everyone all has to have in a world of meeting fatigue.
Yeah, absolutely. Secondly, I do an all hands every month. You probably do the same, where we all come together. I speak for 15 minutes, then we have a guest speaker, and it'll be somebody amazing. I think I had Bruno Marg, who from Dalton Marg, the typographer, speak a couple of weeks ago. It was like a TED talk on typography. It was amazing. My friend Paul Epworth was going to speak. He's a music producer. He wrote Skyfall with Adele. He's won an Oscar. He's won Emmys. But he was going to talk about sonic branding and music and the importance of music in design as we move forward and in experiences. Having that kind of hook as well. But culturally, to your point, each of the groups, there's a city near them or an area near them where they can meet when we were able through COVID to. And if anyone does that, they can meet up in a group and put the bill forward, and I encourage that all the time. Meet up for drinks and what have you. If I'm ever in town, obviously I'll make sure that happens. But you have to work hard at it. And then similarly, we've got groups that have developed within the community. So people are focused on service design or futures, which is a big one. Future services and future thinking and patterns. There's about 35 humans in that group. They meet every Monday. And they've got their own kind of context they talk around. So
where did the Group of Humans name come from?
I bought it in like 03, 04.
It's just you're like just a great domain
Yeah,
name.
no,
You
it's a great
own
name.
it.
Yeah, no, yeah, and
I'd
I'm
love
really,
to claim Chameleon Collective was different, but it's just a great domain name I've been sitting on for a long time, and
yeah, I was
great.
just doing that a long time. It was nearly the name for Great Fridays, and
Yeah,
it's funny. At the time I was working with J.K. Rowling at the time,
yeah.
and Peter Gabriel was my investor. So two people who could write a word or two and knew a thing or two about naming things. And Peter wasn't a big fan of the name Great Fridays, and he liked the name Group of Humans. But Great Fridays kind of meant something to Matt and I, just as the journey we were on. And I was speaking to J.K. Rowling live. I said, "What do you think?" She went, "I love it." So we ended up keeping Great Fridays, and I held a Group of Humans back. It kind of works, you know. That's what we are. We're a group of humans.
Peter won out in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I wonder if you could take the whole, given the whole farming theme we've got here, could you just take this of like if you had not gone internet, would your company be called like Flock of Sheep or
Well, I actually own Group of Eight.
Can of Pigs or
I own
something
Group
like
of
that?
Eight. I bought a Group of Apes and I bought a Group of Humans, and the idea that was going to be the research lab. It doesn't kind of work. So yeah, definitely my farm would be down that road.
So going back, to the whole kind of farm theme that we were going down before, we've talked about concepts like focus being really important. You mentioned knowing your team, I think, being really really important. You touched on the kind of practicalities of business as being a really interesting theme. There any other kind of things that you feel really connected to when you start thinking about these two worlds together?
Well, sustainability and the environment and climate.
Mm,
I think that's a really interesting place to be able to play. And it's not. I don't think it's a surprise to the humans that we're being approached by some really interesting startups from that world. And very well funded startups from that world looking at agriculture. And if you were to say to the humans, what are the three things you'd like to work on the most? Sustainability would be up there in that top three. Climate would be another, and education would probably be the third. They enjoy those things, and I think again, back to Clarkson's farm, the learning he went through in a year, and not spoiling it for everybody, but let's just say he doesn't go back to London, right? Throughout
mm,
all the pain he goes through, he loved being back in there. And I'm out here in the country. I've spent 7 years near you in Miami on the water,
mhm.
and it's a completely different lifestyle. But the climate really affected me. Hurricane season freaked me out every year. I
Yeah.
evacuated 5 times in 7 years.
We
Right?
don't like to use the H word until season's over, so I understand. It's fact when you mention sustainability, this other, and you could tell me if this is rubbish or not, but there's this other side of it that I can't help but think about, which is that um, when you think about building healthy, sustainable businesses, whether that's building a brand that's meant to last a long time, or just building a healthy company that you want to last longer than it's not you're not just hammering something to extract all the money out of it or extract all the immediate value out of it or all the lingo investor types use. But I think there's something really meaningful, like in the farming world, it's important that you care for your soil. I'm talking again. I'm not an expert in this, so this is just as I understand it. You care for the soil. You have to make sure that you can build. You don't degrade the health of the fertility of the crops and the land, so that as you build a sustainable. First, it's good for the environment, but you need to be able to do that to have longevity. Is any of that kind of thinking also, not to point you in that direction. But does that kind of connect with you at all, or is it
Yeah, no,
more about?
I mean, humans as a the brand, we came up with the purpose of waste not your time, waste not mine, waste not the planet, right? And waste not can be interpreted in different ways. Different humans look at it for different purposes. I'm 46, and I didn't want to waste the next 20 years of my life, working with people that I didn't find interesting and that didn't challenge me. And the humans are definitely very challenging people. They're all very experienced, capable human beings. But going down that route of sustainability and how we bring the youth into the humans, we're looking at different ways of doing mentorship, for example. And I'm working with a couple of the ladies within the team that have got a lot of experience in community development. One of them, a lady called Ali Larry, who owns a community of female creatives, 75,000 strong. She's been doing it for 10 years. She's built an amazing community of females, right? And I reference her often when we're looking at that. So I didn't want to do this sort of, the traditional mentor program that maybe a big network would do, famously WPP, kind of fund the new blood from D&AD and have the first dibs. And, is that the right thing to do? I'd rather do something where we work with creative talent that hasn't been able to be fortunate enough to go to higher education or go to university, that's just really talented, and find a way to walk around that. So, sustaining our, the creativity of our group and letting it move on is kind of a theme for me at the moment. And we're looking at different opportunities to be able to bring those kinds of people into our group. Similarly, around waste not, being able to, the amount of money I've seen wasted in my career on programs that that we're just given up on because the right people weren't put in place and the right kinds of teams weren't put in place has been a big part of the humans as well. So, I always say, let's put the smallest amount of people necessary on the program. We, again, the sort of the original agency model of put many people billable as possible and have a smaller bench as you can, and you only sell people that are on the bench. We don't have a bench. It's the same thing.
That's why I feel like the whole model is so flawed when you've got a traditional agency or traditional consulting firm. If you have all these people in kind of a traditional salary model, then you're like, I have to put these people to work, whether it's the right thing for the clients or not.
Exactly. I've got a load of web developers on the bench. I'm going to sell you websites, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not there. I mean, you look at what happened when the iPhone was built, when it came around, and how quickly and the lack of developers available for that platform, and the surge of that, and then similarly with the tablet, and I guess now in HTML, in front end engineering, the skill sets that are scarce, and it changes all the time. And again, it goes back to farming in a way. The analogies are quite similar. I always look at the end of years of businesses, because that's where their spend happens. And if I can have a big client in each quarter, I can have a sustainable roll of funding coming in. You probably do the same in farming. You want to have crops that come in at different times, so you've got funding coming in, or you've got other businesses. In Jeremy's case, he had a farm shop. He went down the road with livestock, not so successfully, which is quite funny. But he looked at different ways of making sure that he had funding coming through the year. And I think that sustainability is important. My job is to sustain. I always think to myself, God, I hope I don't mess this up, because I really do think the humans is a brilliant thing, right? And I panic about that. And I just said to them all, we met up in London on Friday, kind of local humans, about 10 or 15 of us. And I said, we're 3 next week. I said, I call that year 0. Because as you know, it takes 3 years to get your business so you understand what you've built. Yeah, right? You kind of set out with a vision. That's where Chameleon Collector's 5.5 years in, and I do feel like it was about two years ago that everything, we really got it. Like, we're like, oh, whoa, this is interesting. We've got like a unique thing that we're doing, and I don't think we even understood that in the beginning, in all honesty. Well, I was very lucky that 25 humans, when I called them all and said, I've got this idea, I'm calling Simon Waterfall, I'm calling, I don't know, Chris Clark and Peter Drake, all these guys and girls that have been with me at different parts of my journey, whether they've been my client or people I've respected or pitched against or whatever, that I knew were independent practitioners. And I said to them, I've got this idea, what do you think? And they all kind of put their hand up and became part of it. And why? I think the other part is knowing what they're good at. The practitioners are good at practicing. They hate predominantly the hustle. They don't like looking for the opportunity and managing that. And they don't necessarily like the accounting and running of their own entities. And if I can help, make that easier for them so they can focus on their passion, go back to my practical and business side. I'm on the business side, they're on the practical side, but the two have to be in harmony. And that's kind of how it works on the farm, and again, not to, I hope Clarkson's Farm give us a little bit of a snippet for the promotion we're doing for them, Freddie. I was just thinking to myself, I challenge any podcast web series out there to have more
farm analogies than we do
In
for
one
technology
minute.
and business. No one will touch us. We own this space now. This is us. It's O Ship. It's faux nautical theme and farming. That's our brand now. We're in.
No.
Boom, own it. I actually just got a message from our marketing team. It says, I have some bad news. Apparently, Clarkson's farm got canceled yesterday. Oh no. Oh no. Hey, at least we can't claim responsibility for that, because if that happened like a couple of days later, I'd be like, oh, we did this web show. People got the word out and they're like, look, if these idiots like it, it can't possibly be good. And then they canned it.
Well, can be quite annoying as a human being. I think everyone who's watched him would agree with that. But that endeared me to him. It made me
Yeah.
like him, So there you go.
Yeah.
Moment of
Well,
silence.
maybe he wanted to when you're on camera. Maybe once was enough. So God knows he doesn't need the money. Um, so too funny. Well, Rob, this was super fun. I always love catching up with you. I think this was a really really interesting subject, and it's fun to just take a new angle on the business world. And I don't have any other digital guru experts who also have a farming degree and come from that world. So you're by far the smartest and most charming person I know that has that background, because you are in fact the only one. But that's okay.
It's like I say to my 7-year-old daughter, "You're my favorite 7-year-old daughter." She went, "Oh,
Yeah,
no."
perfect. Exactly right. So, I would like to thank everyone who's taken the time to tune in today. We really appreciate you watching our ship, whether you're watching it live across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, even Instagram these days, or you're watching it after the show via our podcast or on any of those same platforms. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate the comments that are being asked in the comment section. We always, if you've got any questions after the show, even when we're not live, feel free to put them in the comment section of any of those platforms, and we'll do our best to respond to you directly or in the comments. Again, the other great thing you can do to help us support the show is give us a like, share the video, tell your friends about it. Anything you can do to put the good word out there helps us to keep producing great content week after week. And Rob, you can check out Group of Humans at groupofhumans.com and learn more about Rob and his business. Fascinating guy. Rob, thank you again for coming to the show today.
Cheers, Freddie. Thanks, man. Nice to see you. Thank you, everybody.
My pleasure. Take care and have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.